Commander Ethan Ward stared at the monitor, his face lit by the blue glow of the screen. The signal was clear. Something was out there, and it was getting closer. "Dr. Pearson, you need to see this," he said, his voice steady, despite the fear growing in his chest. Olivia Pearson walked over from her workstation. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at the data scrolling across the screen. For 5 years, she had worked at Earth's outer solar system monitoring station, searching for signs of the ancient human settlements she believed existed on distant worlds. Most people thought her theories were crazy. Now the proof was right, in front of them. "They found it," she whispered. "They found what we've been hiding from." The year was 2157. For over a century, humanity had maintained a policy of cosmic silence. After detecting signals from advanced alien civilizations, Earth's leaders had made a decision: stay quiet, develop in secret, and avoid drawing attention. It seemed to work. Until now. "Captain Rivera is on her way down," said Alan, the communications officer. "Command wants a full briefing in 20 minutes. Ethan nodded. He zoomed the image on his screen, showing strange ships hovering over the ruins on Europa 442, a moon they had secretly studied for years. The ships were unlike anything humans had built, organic-looking, with flowing lines and pulsing lights. They were methodically destroying the ruins. Captain Susan Rivera entered the room. Everyone stood straighter. Her reputation as the best captain in the United Space Command was well earned. "What do we know?" she asked, not wasting time on greetings. Dr. Pearson stepped forward. "Captain, these ruins are over 50,000 years old. They're human in origin." "Human?" Rivera's eyebrows rose. "That's impossible. We only reached Mars 80 years ago." "That's what history tells us," Olivia said. She pulled up more images on the screen. "But I've found evidence that humans once possessed technology far beyond what we have now. We spread throughout multiple star systems before something happened. A collapse, a war, maybe both." Ethan added, "The probe we sent last year has been collecting data. These alien ships arrived 3 days ago. They're systematically destroying every trace of the ruins." Rivera's face hardened. "Show me." The video from the probe played on the main screen. The alien ships fired blue beams into the ruins, vaporizing structures that had stood for thousands of years. In the background, more ships were arriving. "There's something else," Alan said. He pressed a button, and a message played through the speakers. It was in multiple languages, the last one being English. "Attention dormant human settlements. The Alvarez Collective has located your remaining outposts. We come to finish what was started and eliminate the dormant threat. Your ancestors knew the price of defiance, now you will as well." The room fell silent. "How do they know about us?" Rivera asked. "We've been silent." "They're not responding to our current civilization," Olivia realized. "They're responding to what they found in those ruins. They think we're the same humans from 50,000 years ago." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Alan's fingers flew across his keyboard. "Multiple objects entering the solar system," he reported. "Scout ships based on their size. They're heading toward Neptune." Rivera tapped her communication badge. "This is Captain Rivera. Connect me to United Space Command, Emergency Protocol Alpha 9. Within minutes, the largest screen in the room showed the stern face of Admiral Bennett, head of Earth's Defense Forces. "Captain, we're tracking the objects. Is this confirmed first contact?" "Negative, sir. This appears to be a hostile force targeting human settlements. They call themselves the Alvarez Collective, and they believe they're finishing a war that started thousands of years ago." Bennett's face showed no emotion, but his voice grew colder. "What evidence do you have of this claim?" Ethan transmitted the probe data and the message. The Admiral was silent as he reviewed it. "The Security Council is convening now," he finally said. "Captain Rivera, prepare the USS Vigilant for immediate departure. Commander Ward and Dr. Pearson will join your crew. Your mission is to gather more information without engaging the alien forces." "What about defense preparations, sir?" Rivera asked. "All orbital platforms are being activated. Ground-based defenses are on standby." The Admiral paused. "If what Dr. Pearson suggests is true, We may be facing an enemy that once defeated a much more advanced human civilization. We need to know what we're up against." The transmission ended. Rivera turned to Ethan and Olivia. "Pack your things. We leave in 3 hours." As Ethan returned to his quarters, his mind raced. Humanity had stayed quiet, hidden in their small corner of the galaxy, but something in their past had made these aliens fear humans enough to hunt down and destroy any trace of them. On the USS Vigilant, Ethan stood on the bridge beside Captain Rivera. The ship was the newest in Earth's small fleet, built for exploration, but armed for defense. Through the view screen he watched as Earth grew smaller. "Course set for Neptune's orbit," the navigator announced. "Estimated arrival in 6 days. Dr. Pearson is setting up in Science Lab 2, Rivera told Ethan. "I want you to work with her. If these aliens are afraid of what humans were capable of, we need to know why." "Yes, Captain." In the lab, Olivia was already surrounded by data screens. Her face lit up when she saw Ethan. "I've been collecting archaeological data for years," she said. "There are patterns, Ethan, signs that humanity once had outposts across at least 12 star systems." "What happened to them?" he asked. "Something terrible." She pulled up an image of Earth showing strange geological formations. "These aren't natural. They're impact sites from weapons far more powerful than anything we can imagine." Before Ethan could respond, alarms sounded throughout the ship. "All hands to battle stations," Rivera's voice came over the speakers. "Unidentified vessels approaching, at high speed." Ethan and Olivia rushed to the bridge. On the main screen, 3 alien ships were visible, moving faster than any human vessel could travel. "They've bypassed our outer system defenses," the tactical officer reported. "They'll reach Earth in less than 2 days." Rivera's face was grim. "Send emergency alert to command. Tell them the Alvarez scout ships have arrived." As the message was sent, the alien ships suddenly changed course, heading directly toward the Vigilant. "They've detected us," Rivera said. "Red alert. Prepare defensive measures." Ethan looked at the approaching ships, feeling the weight of history pressing down on him. Humanity had stayed quiet for so long, hoping to avoid the attention of the stars, but the past had found them anyway, and now they would have to face whatever terrible conflict their ancestors had left unfinished. Dr. Alan Fletcher shivered as the elevator descended deep beneath the Antarctic ice. The temperature was well below freezing, but that wasn't why he shivered. It was the weight of what they might find. "How much further?" asked Major Delia Washington. Her hand rested near her weapon, a habit from years in special operations. "Almost there," Kyle Rodriguez answered. The young tech genius studied his tablet as numbers flashed across the screen. "According to these coordinates, we should reach the facility in about 30 seconds. The 3 of them had been brought together after the Alvarez Collective's first attack. While the USS Vigilant had narrowly escaped destruction, Earth's orbital defenses had not been so lucky. 6 defense platforms had been destroyed, and millions now knew humanity was not alone in the universe. The elevator slowed, then stopped. The doors opened to reveal a vast chamber carved into the ice and rock. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing with a faint blue light. In the center stood a black obelisk untouched by time. "This can't be," Alan whispered. "This technology, it's impossible." Delia stepped forward, her flashlight beam dancing across the chamber. "Dr. Pearson's research led us here. She believed this was one of several sites where our ancestors left. Something? A message? Or a weapon?" Kyle approached the obelisk, his eyes wide with wonder. "It's responding to our presence." The symbols on the obelisk had begun to glow brighter. Alan connected his tablet to a small port at the base of the structure. Lines of code filled his screen faster than he could read them. "It's a quantum archive," he said, his voice filled with awe. "A complete record of humanity's forgotten golden age." Images suddenly projected around them, filling the chamber with light. They saw cities that stretched into the clouds, ships that sailed between stars, and humans transformed by technology beyond their understanding. "My God," Delia whispered. "We were incredible." The images shifted, showing a terrible war. Strange ships, the same design as the Alvarez fleet, battled against human vessels. Planets burned. Stars died. Billions of lives from both sides were lost. This is what Dr. Pearson was trying to tell us, Alan said. We weren't always confined to Earth and a few colonies. We spread across the stars. The projection changed again, showing a small group of humans in a chamber similar to the one they stood in now. A woman stepped forward in the recording. If you are seeing this, then the threat has returned. We, the last council of the Human Federation, have made the painful choice to reset our civilization. The war with the Alvarez Collective nearly destroyed us all. Their hatred for us runs too deep to allow for peace. Kyle stared at the woman, transfixed by her words. We have hidden caches of our technology across Earth and throughout the solar system, she continued. We have also seeded a protection protocol that will reactivate if the threat returns. You must find these caches quickly. The Alvarez will show no mercy. The recording ended, leaving them in silence. We need to report this, Delia said, her military training taking over. Command needs to know what we're facing. Wait, Kyle said. He pointed to new symbols appearing on the obelisk. It's giving us coordinates. The first cache is in the Mariana Trench. Alan's tablet beeped. I'm receiving data, schematics for defensive systems, ship designs, weapons. He looked up, his face pale. This is beyond anything we currently have, centuries ahead of our technology. Can we build it in time? Delia asked. We won't have to, Kyle said, his fingers flying across his own tablet. The recording mentioned a protection protocol, I think. He paused, eyes widening. There are thousands of satellites in Earth orbit that aren't on any official registry. They've been there all along, hidden somehow. Delia's communication device buzzed. She answered it, her expression growing more serious as she listened. We need to move now, she said after ending the call. The Alvarez fleet has broken through our outer defenses. They'll reach Earth within hours. They gathered what data they could and returned to the surface. A hypersonic transport was waiting to take them to the Pacific Command Center. Hours later, Kyle stood before a room of military leaders, including Admiral Frank Daniels, who had taken command after the first attack. The satellites are real, Kyle explained, showing them the data. They've been in a kind of stealth mode undetectable to our sensors, but I found a way to activate them. Do it, Admiral Daniels ordered. Kyle entered a complex series of commands. On the large screen at the front of the room, thousands of new objects suddenly appeared in Earth orbit. What are they? Someone asked. Defense platforms, Alan said. Far more advanced than anything we have now. According to the archive, they can generate energy shields and deploy weapons that can target ships in hyperspace. A technician called out from a monitoring station. Sir, the Alvarez fleet has arrived. They're launching their attack. On the screen, they watched as Earth's conventional defenses engaged the alien ships. It was no contest. Human vessels were destroyed one after another. The orbital platforms, Earth's greatest achievement, fell like leaves in autumn. Activate the ancestral defenses, Daniels ordered. Kyle pressed the final key. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the thousands of hidden satellites began to move. They arranged themselves in a complex pattern around Earth, and energy fields sprang up between them. The Alvarez weapons struck the fields and dissipated harmlessly. The alien fleet paused, seemingly confused by this unexpected resistance. It's working, Delia breathed, but their victory was short-lived. A message came through on all channels, broadcast in the same multiple languages as before. Humans, you have awakened your ancestral weapons. This confirms what we have always known. You are the destroyers, the conquerors who nearly eradicated dozens of species. We will not allow this to happen again. The message ended, and the Alvarez attack redoubled. New ships emerged from hyperspace larger than the first wave. We need more, Admiral Daniels said. The shields won't hold forever. Dr. Fletcher, what else did you find in the archive? Alan looked at the coordinates still displayed on his tablet. The Mariana Trench cache. It contains something called the Forge. According to this, it's a manufacturing facility. On Earth? Daniels asked, surprised. No, Alan replied. On Mars. As they spoke, the Alvarez ships battered the ancient defense grid. Some of the satellites were already failing. We need to get to Mars, Kyle said, and we need to do it now. Delia looked at the battle unfolding above them. Humanity had stayed quiet for so long, hiding from a threat they didn't understand. Now, they were facing the consequences of a war from 50,000 years ago. A war they had no memory of fighting. The USS Vigilant survived the first attack, Admiral Daniels said. Captain Rivera is bringing it back to Earth. If anyone can get you to Mars through that battlefield, it's her. The room shook as something impacted nearby. The Alvarez were now targeting ground installations. Time's up, Delia said. We need to move. As they hurried from the command center, Kyle looked back at the display showing Earth surrounded by alien ships. The ancient defense system was buying them time. But how much? And what would they find on Mars that could possibly save them? Admiral Frank Daniels watched the battle unfold from Luna Command Center. Earth glowed blue and green below, surrounded by flashes of light as ships exploded and weapons fired. The ancient defense grid still held, but it was weakening by the hour. Status report, he ordered. The USS Vigilant has reached Mars orbit, reported his communications officer. Dr. Fletcher, Major Washington, and Mr. Rodriguez are beginning their descent to the surface. Frank nodded. Everything now depended on what they found there. The Alvarez Collective had already destroyed 3 major cities. Millions were dead. The remaining human fleet was scattered and outgunned. Sir, we're receiving a new transmission from the Alvarez command ship, the officer said. Put it through. A figure appeared on screen. It looked almost human, but with gray skin and eyes too large for its face. When it spoke, its voice was cold and precise. Humans. Your ancestral technology confirms what our histories tell us. 50,000 years ago, your kind spread across the stars like a plague. You conquered without mercy. You enslaved without compassion. Dozens of species were wiped out by your ancestors' hunger for expansion. Frank kept his face neutral, though the words chilled him. We have no memory of these events. We are not the same people who fought your ancestors. Your genetic code carries the same potential for violence and domination, the alien replied. We will not wait for you to become the destroyers again. Surrender now, and we will allow some of your people to live in containment. Resist, and we will burn your worlds to ash. The transmission ended. Frank turned to his officers. Get me Captain Rivera on Mars now. On the red surface of Mars, the USS Vigilant sat near an unremarkable mountain. Captain Susan Rivera led her team toward a narrow opening in the rock face. Dr. Olivia Pearson walked beside her, studying the ancient symbols carved into the stone. This is it, Olivia said. The entrance to the forge. Behind them, engineer Sam Collins carried equipment to bypass any security systems they might encounter. The rest of the team formed a protective circle around them, weapons ready. Any word from Earth? Susan asked her communications officer. Admiral Daniels is attempting to contact us, he replied. The signal is weak. The Alvarez are jamming our communications. Susan frowned. Keep trying. We need to know what's happening. They entered the mountain through a narrow passage that quickly opened into a vast chamber. Unlike the Antarctic facility, this place showed no signs of age. Everything looked new, as if it had been built yesterday instead of 50,000 years ago. Sam whistled. This technology, it's incredible. In the center of the chamber stood a large cube made of a material none of them recognized. It hummed, with energy, pulsing with a soft blue light. Olivia approached it carefully. This must be the control center for the forge. She placed her hand on the cube's surface. Immediately, the entire chamber lit up. Holographic displays appeared all around them, showing schematics for ships, weapons, and devices they couldn't begin to understand. It's recognizing your DNA, Sam said in awe. It knows you're human. A voice spoke from nowhere and everywhere. Human presence detected. Activation protocols initiated. The Forge awaits your command. Susan stepped forward. We need defenses against the Alvarez Collective. They're attacking Earth. Processing request. Analyzing current threat patterns. The voice paused. The Alvarez have advanced their technology by 42% since last encounter, adjusting production parameters. The mountain around them began to vibrate. Through the holographic displays, they watched as massive machinery awakened deep beneath the Martian surface. What exactly is this place? Susan asked. The Forge is an automated manufacturing facility, the voice replied. It can produce defensive and offensive systems using resources extracted from Mars's core. Production will begin immediately. Before they could ask more questions, Susan's communication device beeped. Admiral Daniels's voice came through, broken by static. Captain Rivera discovered the truth. The Alvarez message, partially true. Our ancestors. The signal cut out. We need to know what he was trying to tell us, Susan said. Olivia, can you use this facility to boost our signal? Olivia studied the holographic controls. I think so. The Forge seems to have communication systems that might bypass the Alvarez jamming. While she worked, Sam explored the chamber, examining the schematics floating in the air. Captain, you need to see this, he called. These aren't just defensive systems, these are warships, planet killers, weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. Susan looked at the designs with growing concern. Were our ancestors really the monsters the Alvarez claimed they were? The facility's voice spoke again. Historical archives accessible. Would you like to review the conflict records? Yes, Olivia said immediately. Show us what really happened. New holographic images appeared, showing scenes from the ancient war. They saw human ships attacking alien worlds, but also Alvarez ships destroying human colonies. The conflict had been brutal on both sides. Then the images changed, showing a group of humans meeting with representatives from other species, including some who looked like the Alvarez. What is this? Susan asked. Peace negotiations. The voice replied. A faction of humans opposed the war and sought alliance with other species, including a subset of the Alvarez Collective. The final conflict was not species against species, but those who sought peace against those who sought dominance. Olivia's eyes widened. So the Alvarez aren't telling the whole truth. It wasn't all humans who were conquerors. Correct. The faction of humans who reset civilization on Earth were those who opposed the war. They chose to begin anew rather than continue the cycle of violence. The communication system suddenly came to life. Admiral Daniels appeared on a holographic screen, his image clear despite the distance. Captain, we've discovered the full truth, he said without preamble. The ancient war began when a splinter human faction attacked alien worlds, but most of humanity opposed these actions. The Alvarez believe all humans are genetically predisposed to conquest and genocide, but it's not true. We've found the same information here, Admiral, Susan replied. The Forge is activating. It's beginning to produce ships and defensive systems. Good. We need them. The Alvarez have broken through our outer defenses. They're preparing to deploy what appear to be planet-killer weapons. His face was grim. We're launching a counterattack with everything we have left. If we can push them back to Neptune's orbit, it might buy you enough time. We'll get the new ships to you as soon as possible, Susan promised. The connection ended. Susan turned to her team. We need to speed this up. Earth doesn't have much time. Through the facility's monitors, they watched as the first new ships emerged from fabrication chambers beneath the Martian surface. They were sleek and powerful, unlike anything humans had built in thousands of years. But as the ships rose into Mars orbit, the sensors detected a new threat. Massive Alvarez reinforcement fleet detected, the facility announced. Estimated arrival in Earth orbit 6 hours. Current defensive capabilities insufficient. Susan looked at her team, determination in her eyes. There must be something. More here. Something that can help us against those numbers. Olivia studied the facility's archives. There's a reference here to something called the Spear of Memory. It's located on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. What is it? Sam asked. It doesn't say exactly, but it's described as the ultimate defensive measure. Our last hope if all else fails. Susan made her decision quickly. Olivia, stay here and coordinate with the Forge. Sam, you're with me. We're taking the Vigilant to Europa. As they prepared to leave, Olivia looked at the ships being produced by the Forge. They might be enough to defend Earth for a while, but against the reinforcement fleet, they stood little chance. Everything now depended on what they found on Europa. The Spear of Memory might be humanity's only hope for survival. The USS Vigilant sped through space toward Jupiter. Captain Susan Rivera stood on the bridge, watching as the massive gas giant grew larger on the view screen. Engineer Sam Collins worked at a nearby console, studying the data they had brought from Mars. Europa should be coming into view soon, Susan said. Any progress on figuring out what this Spear of Memory might be? Sam shook his head. The records are vague, only that it's some kind of ship or weapon hidden beneath Europa's ice. It was placed there as a last resort. Commander Ethan Ward entered the bridge. Captain, we've got the latest update from Earth. The first wave of ships from the Forge have engaged the Alvarez fleet. They're buying us time, but the reinforcements will arrive in less than 5 hours. Susan nodded grimly. Then we have 4 hours to find this weapon and get it back to Earth. The Vigilant entered orbit around Europa. The moon's surface was a maze of cracks and ridges in the ice, hiding a vast ocean beneath. Their sensors searched for any sign of ancient technology. I'm picking up an energy signature, reported the science officer. It's faint, but it matches the frequency range of the technology we found on Mars. Take us down, Susan ordered. The ship descended through Europa's thin atmosphere. They hovered over a smooth plain of ice, the energy signature growing stronger beneath them. We can't land on this surface, Sam warned. It's too unstable. Prepare a landing team, Susan said. We'll use the shuttle. Minutes later, Susan, Sam, and Ethan stood on Europa's icy surface along with Dr. Alan Fletcher and Kyle Rodriguez, who had joined them from Earth. They wore heated environmental suits to protect them from the extreme cold. Beneath their feet, the ice glowed with a faint blue light. The signature is coming from approximately 100 meters below us, Alan said, checking his scanner. Kyle pointed to a narrow crack in the ice nearby. That fissure might lead down to it. They approached the crack cautiously. It was wide enough for a person to fit through and descended at a gentle angle into the ice. The blue glow grew stronger inside. I'll go first, Ethan volunteered. He entered the fissure, using his suit's magnetic grips to control his descent. The others followed. The passage twisted and turned, leading them deeper beneath Europa's surface. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber. The ice walls had been carved into smooth surfaces that reflected blue light. In the center of the chamber floated what looked like a ship, but unlike any they had seen before. It was sleek and silver, shaped like a spear point, and surrounded by a field of energy. The Spear of Memory, Susan whispered. They approached it slowly. The ship was much larger than it had first appeared, at least the size of the Vigilant. How do we activate it? Sam wondered aloud. Kyle studied the symbols etched into the ice walls. These are instructions. This isn't just a weapon, it's a vessel for consciousness. What does that mean? Ethan asked. According to this, the ship contains the digitized consciousness of volunteer ancestors who chose to remain vigilant through the millennia, Kyle explained, his voice filled with awe. Alan connected his tablet to a panel near the ship. He's right. There are thousands of human consciousness signatures stored in this vessel. They've been in a dormant state for 50,000 years. Susan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. They sacrificed their physical lives to remain as guardians. Should we wake them? Sam asked hesitantly. Before anyone could answer, their communication devices beeped urgently. Admiral Daniel's voice came through, filled with static. Captain Rivera, Alvarez reinforcements arrived early, breaking through our defenses, deploying planet killers. Earth has less than 2 hours. The transmission cut off abruptly. Susan made her decision. We don't have a choice. We need to wake them. Alan and Kyle worked together, using the instructions on the walls to interface with the ancient ship. The energy field around it pulsed brighter. "I think we've got it," Kyle said. "The awakening process has begun." The ship hummed louder. Light poured from it, filling the chamber. Then a holographic figure appeared before them, a woman in clothing, style they didn't recognize, her expression solemn but kind. "I am Dr. Grace Powell, representative of the Guardian Consciousness," she said. "You have awakened us. The threat must have returned." Susan stepped forward. "The Alvarez Collective is attacking Earth. They believe all humans are destined to become conquerors." Grace nodded sadly. "We feared this might happen. The hatred ran too deep to be easily forgotten." She looked at each of them. "But we are not what they believe us to be." "We discovered that most humans opposed the war," Ethan said, "including those who reset our civilization." "Yes. We who chose to remain as guardians were scientists, diplomats, and peacekeepers. Not warriors," Grace explained. "The spear is not a weapon of destruction but of truth." "Truth won't stop planet-killer weapons," Susan said urgently. "Earth has less than 2 hours." Grace smiled. "You underestimate the power of truth, Captain. Prepare your ship. The spear will follow you to Earth." As they hurried back to the Vigilant, the ice around them began to crack and shift. The ancient ship rose from its resting place, breaking through Europa's surface in a shower of ice and water. From orbit, they watched as the spear fully emerged. It was beautiful and terrible, glowing with power that their sensors couldn't fully measure. "Setting course for Earth, maximum speed," Susan ordered. As they raced back to their home planet, the spear kept pace effortlessly. On the communications channel, Dr. Grace Powell spoke to them again. "There is something you should know before we arrive," she said. "The Alvarez are not telling their own people the truth about the ancient war. Their leaders have manipulated their history, hiding the fact that many of their ancestors were saved by human diplomats during the conflict." "How can you know that?" Alan asked. "It's been 50,000 years. Some of us stayed awake, watching from the shadows. We observed the development of both civilizations," Grace replied. "The Alvarez society is built on a foundation of fear of what humanity might become again. Their leaders use that fear to maintain control. As they approached Earth, the scene that greeted them was one of devastation. The orbital defenses were in ruins. The ships from the Forge fought bravely but were overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of the Alvarez fleet. At the center of the enemy armada, massive ships were positioning themselves around Earth, preparing to unleash their planet-killer weapons. "We're too late," Sam said, his voice breaking. "No," Grace replied firmly. "We are right on time." The spear accelerated past the Vigilant, heading straight toward the Alvarez command ship. Susan expected it to attack, to ram the enemy vessel or fire some unknown weapon. Instead, it began to glow brighter, emitting pulses of energy that washed over the entire Alvarez fleet. These weren't destructive blasts, but waves of data, communications that bypassed all jamming attempts. "What are they doing?" Ethan asked, confused. Kyle's eyes widened as he monitored the communications. "They're broadcasting the truth, to everyone, not just to us, but to the Alvarez ships too. Their crews are seeing the actual history of the conflict. On their screen, they could see confusion spreading through the enemy fleet. Some ships stopped firing. Others began to move away from their positions. A few turned their weapons on other Alvarez vessels. They didn't know," Susan realized. Their own people didn't know the truth. The planet-killer weapons powered down. The battle paused as both sides watched the history unfold before them. The truth that had been hidden for 50,000 years was finally being revealed. And in that moment of revelation, humanity's silent years came to an end. The time for hiding was over. The time for truth had begun. Chaos erupted among the Alvarez fleet. Ship fired upon ship as the truth divided them. Some vessels moved to protect Earth while others maintained their attack positions. The planet-killer weapons remained powered down, but the battle was far from over. Admiral Frank Daniels watched from Luna Command Center, hardly daring to believe what he was seeing. "What just happened?" he asked, as Captain Susan Rivera's face appeared on his screen. The ancestral ship is broadcasting the true history, Susan explained. The Alvarez people are learning that their leaders lied to them for thousands of years. Sir, called a communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from an Alvarez vessel. They're requesting to speak with human leadership. Frank straightened his uniform. Put them through. A gray-skinned Alvarez appeared on screen. Unlike the cold commander they had spoken with before, this one's large eyes showed clear emotion. I am Captain Narration of the Alvarez ship Truthseeker, the alien said. Many of us have seen the historical records. We did not know. Our histories taught us that all humans were monsters who sought to destroy us. And our histories didn't teach us about you at all. Frank replied honestly. We forgot everything. A group of our ships wishes to defect, Narration continued. We cannot support this genocide based on lies, but our high command is still determined to complete their mission. They believe the historical records are human deceptions. As if to confirm this, several of the largest Alvarez warships began to move toward Earth once more. They're repositioning the planet killers, Ethan Ward reported from the USS Vigilant. The Spear of Memory moved to intercept them, taking position between Earth and the approaching threats. The holographic image of Dr. Grace Powell appeared on bridges and command centers throughout both fleets. People of Earth and the Alvarez Collective, she said, her voice carrying a weight of 50,000 years. You stand at a crossroads that your ancestors faced before. You can choose continued war, or you can choose to break the cycle. On the Alvarez command ship, High Commander Vex slammed his fist against his control panel. Ignore this deception. Complete our sacred mission. Humanity must be contained before they spread their violence again. But many of his captains were no longer listening. More Alvarez ships moved to join Captain Narration's defectors. Grace's hologram continued. The faction of humans who attacked Alvarez worlds 50,000 years ago were defeated, not by Alvarez weapons but by other humans who opposed their violence. And many Alvarez stood with those humans choosing peace over vengeance. Dr. Olivia Pearson, watching from the forge on Mars, felt tears fill her eyes. The archaeological evidence makes sense now. Both sides worked together in the end. The High Commander's voice boomed across all channels. The planet killers will fire in 2 minutes. Those who interfere will be destroyed first. We need to stop those weapons, Susan said urgently. Kyle Rodriguez, working frantically at his console on the Vigilant, looked up suddenly. Captain, I think I can disable their firing systems if I can get close enough to transmit a specific frequency code. The ancestral data from the spear includes override protocols for Alvarez weapons. Too dangerous, Susan replied. Their point defenses would destroy any ship that approaches. Not if they're distracted, came the voice of Captain Narration. My ships will create an opening. Your vessel must be ready. Susan nodded grimly. Prepare for attack pattern Delta. All hands to battle stations. What followed was not the final battle they had feared, but something more complex. The defector Alvarez ships engaged the Loyalists, creating a chaotic melee. Earth's remaining defenses and the ships from the Forge joined the fight, targeting the planet killers specifically. The USS Vigilant slipped through the confusion, taking heavy damage but pressing forward. Kyle transmitted the override codes as they passed each weapon platform. One by one, the planet killers went dark, their systems shutting down completely. It's working, Sam Collins shouted, but the High Commander was not finished. His flagship, massive and heavily armed, broke away from the battle and accelerated toward Earth. He's going to ram the planet, Ethan realized in horror. At that speed, the impact would be devastating. The Spear of Memory moved to intercept, placing itself directly in the flagship's path. The two ships collided in a blinding flash of energy. When the light faded, both vessels remained locked together in space. What's happening? Frank asked, watching from Luna. Grace Powell's hologram appeared once more. We are connecting directly with their ship's systems and crew. The High Commander cannot hide from the truth any longer. Inside the Alvarez flagship, the truth spread through every screen and neural interface, not as propaganda or forced messaging, but as raw, unfiltered history. The crew saw the alliance between humans and Alvarez that had ended the ancient war. They saw how their leaders had twisted history to maintain power through fear. The flagship's engine shut down. The threat was over. In the days that followed, a fragile peace took hold. The defector Alvarez ships landed representatives on Earth, and humans traveled to meet with Alvarez colony worlds. The truth continued to spread throughout both civilizations. 1 month later, Susan Rivera stood in a great hall built specifically for the occasion. Beside her stood Captain Narration, Admiral Daniels, and Dr. Grace Powell, her consciousness now housed in a temporary holographic projector. Today, Susan said to the assembled representatives of both species, we sign not just a peace accord, but a new beginning. Our ancestors fought and died over misunderstandings and the actions of a few. We choose a different path. Captain Narration stepped forward. The Alvarez Collective acknowledges the deception perpetrated by our former leadership. We seek not just peace, but alliance with humanity. The treaty was signed to applause from both sides. As the ceremony concluded, Grace Powell approached Susan privately. There is something else you should know, Grace said. Earth was not the only world where humans chose to begin again. There are other colonies out there, dormant or developing in their own way. Susan's eyes widened. Other human worlds? Grace nodded. Some may have advanced beyond even what we achieved. Others may still be in early stages of redevelopment. The archives in the sphere contain their coordinates. Will you help us find them? Susan asked. That is why we remained, Grace replied. Not just to defend, but to reunite. Humanity stayed quiet for too long. It is time for all of us to speak. Again, both humans and Alvarez together. Dr. Olivia Pearson joined them, her face alight with excitement. The first coordinates point to a star system just 30 light-years from here. With the technology from the Forge, we could reach it within months. Susan looked out at the gathering of humans and Alvarez, former enemies now cautiously becoming friends. The long silence was over. The mistakes of the past had been confronted, and now, a new chapter was beginning. Prepare the vigilant, she said. It's time to meet our neighbors. The silence was broken. The ancestors were awake, and humanity was ready to reclaim its place among the stars, this time, with wisdom born from both triumph and tragedy. Not as conquerors, but as explorers. Not with weapons, but with open hands. The wrath of their ancestors had transformed into something far more powerful: understanding.